Everyone's against Moroccans. This is why. 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 Everyone's against Moroccans. This is why.
Colin. Ñu ngi agressé gars yi. Ñu ngi agressé gars yi gis ngeen. Naar yaa ngi agressé restaurant Mama Africa. Oh.
Everyone's against Moroccans. This is why. It's not that everyone is against Moroccans. Everyone's against the corruption, the blatant treatment of other African teams. Everyone's against the unfairness and the blatant favoritism. Like, look at this. You got the Prince of Morocco refusing to hold the cup and hand it to a black team, refusing to do the honors.
There's the trophy. Fighting a little over who. Is going to present the trophy to the champions. The delivery of the trophy.
They don't like me. No. I don't. They keep throwing water at me. I just came here to watch the football game, bro. I don't know what's up with these fans. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. I'm leaving. I think I'm not welcomed here. I don't understand. All of my fans show love in Algeria, but at that stadium, I don't know. They should have just chucked the green apple at me.
They don't like to film them, okay?
They had a football game.
Yeah, but they are ultras, you know, the ultras mentality.
That don't make sense.
And thank you to iShowSpeed for letting me know that Algeria is not for the people.
I just roll away, tell my mom, but my eardrum just busted. My eardrum just busted, bro. I'm not even trolling. I have my shit ringing. Nah, I can't.
Shalom. Once again, all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High, Yahweh Ba'asham Yahawashai, Ba'asham Rakakwadash, double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, and salutations to all you sincere Akim. And this is your brother Abawan back again with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahawashai, Ba'asham Rakakwadash, all praises and glory to you, especially in the times that we're in. And I'm going to probably entitle this video I don't really know what I'm going to entitle this video, but basically I'm sure that as you've already seen from the clips that I put before the beginning of this video, it's going to be going into the hatred that these other nations, as particularly Ishmael, right? Because you always talk about the hatred that Esau, Edom, the so-called red man, has for our people, right? So now we're including also the hatred that the other nations, the heathen, have for our people as well, which are the Israelites, once again the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, which are the scattered Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, and now including Ishmael and also even Ham as well, which is basically the Hamites nations, right, which are the other dark-skinned people that are not Negroes, as explained in the original editions of the Young's Bible Dictionary. Right, so the inspiration for this video actually comes from what the clips that you saw, which are basically clips going into the recent AFCON that just took place here in Nigeria, the African Cup of Nations, right, which is basically a continental tournament here in Africa, a continental football, okay, or soccer if you're in Babylon the Great, but a continental football tournament that took place here in Africa, and it was headlined, or rather I should say the host nation was Morocco. It's kind of similar to the World Cup that is going to be happening in America, Babylon the Great, except the only nations that can play are African nations, right? So Senegal, which is a West African country, which is, which the Senegalese are Jakes, right? They won the recent AFCON that just took place, right? But before they won that, the finals were between the host nation, Morocco, which is a North African country, and Senegal, right? So Senegal won, and after that win, you see a lot of backlash and a lot of hatred, right? A lot of showing of the true feelings of a lot of these Ishmaelites that are over there in North Africa, right? Because if you go into the history of North Africa and all the different conquests that took place from Alexander the Greek, right, all the way to the Islamization of North Africa, then you know that the majority of people that are in North Africa now are mainly Ishmaelites. Of course, you do have some Israelites and some Hamites mixed in. Hell, you probably even have Edomites as well, right? But for the most part, it's Ishmael over there, okay? That's why you see that, outside of above everything above the Sahara, right? The North African nations, they all look like Ishmaelites because it was conquered by Ishmael. I believe that was roughly during that 1100 type of period, okay? Even Carthage, right, which is Tunisia, right? Even Carthage, even Morocco, which originally that was one of the places where the Moors were mainly located. Places like Fez in Morocco, Casablanca in Morocco, right? That was where the Moors originally were. And the original North Africans, which are your Amazigh and which are your Amazigh, right? But they call them Berbers. But the original North Africans are so-called black. They are Hamites, okay? And you still have many of those original North African tribes still living there to this day, including the ancient Egyptians, which are Hamites as well. And it cannot be stressed enough that you so-called Negroes are not ancient Egyptians, right? Because you have niggas like Sanetta, I think it's Shaka Musa as well, all these Egyptology niggas, we're talking about some Kemet. We are not the ancient Egyptians, okay? But right now, it doesn't even really matter about who are the ancient Egyptians, because you can clearly see that the land of Egypt is not being inhabited by them, right? But we know that the ancient Egyptians, they are the South Sudanese, right? The Nilotic tribes and so on and so on, okay? But the point being is this, that, okay, all these other nations, right? All the other nations have a shared hatred for our people, which are the Israelites, and once again is clearly displayed by the conduct which these Ishmaelites over there in North Africa are showing, right? Especially when they are, especially with the way that they are acting and the attacks on Jake, the racism, the hatred, and of course the North African slave trade that still goes on in places like Libya till this day. So this is the book of Psalms 83 verse 1, a song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silent, O power. Hold not thy peace and be not still, O power. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thine hidden ones, right? And the hidden ones are, of course, once again, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And this is just a precept to show you exactly who the enemies of our people are. And you find out that the enemies of our people are all the other nations, okay? It's not just Esau, Edom, though the reason why we always concentrate on Esau, Edom is because he is the devil, which the Bible speaks of. He is the current ruler on the earth. And of course, out of all the nations, he is the one that holds the most hatred okay, for our people, an extra emphasis on the fact that he is the wicked. So basically, he's the headlining enemy, right? But we still have other, but the other nations don't, feel neutrally about our people anyway. They still have the same, they still have hatred for our people as well. They still despise you Israelites, and that's the reason why you Jakes realize that no matter what part of the world you go to, you always see the hatred from these other nations, right? You always see the quote unquote racism from these other nations, and the reason why is because the nations hate you Jakes, man, right? Like I was saying, the nations hate our people, right? Because, and we are reading that the reasons why right now, okay? So now this is the book of Psalms 83, verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederates against thee, the tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines, the inhabitants of Tyre. Right, so of course, like I said, the headlining enemy, Esau, Edom, and then you have the Ishmaelites, right? Because we talk about Esau, Edom, and his crimes against our people, because once again, he is the main antagonist, okay? We also have Ishmael right close behind with the Islamic, with the I forgot what they call it, the Arab slave trade, I believe, which of course is which of course, as your Yakem already know, is what was happening for far longer than the transatlantic slave trade, and is still continuing till this day, right? Like I said, like the different slave houses that you have in North Africa, for example, okay? Because they are still our enemy, man. These Ishmaelites are still our enemy, okay? And it is become abundantly clear with the actions that have taken place and the way that these days North Africans have been speaking and acting, right? Not just after the World Cup and the videos I showed you. You go online right now, what's really trending is all these North Africans coming out and being like, yeah, we're not Africans, we're Arabs, not so-called Africans, we are so-called Arabs, right? And it's like, nah, you guys are so-called Ishmaelites, okay? And just because, you have Jake here in Africa as well, right? Because that's really who the focus of these North Africans' hatred is concentrated to, right? Just because you have Jake scattered here in Africa as well does not make us Africans, okay? We are the Israelites according to the scriptures. But the idea is that, once again, that African term is a byword, it is a proverb, right? Another name to use to refer to the Israelites, the true Israelites, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, especially the so-called Negroes, rather than the true nationality and true identity that we have. And that's the reason why, and that's the reason why I'm even mentioning it, right? But they'll say that, they're not so-called Africans, they are so-called Arabs, and try to cling on to, this Ishmaelite identity, right? Even though they are in the continent, right? Even though they are in the continent of Ham. And then, man, they are right, man, because these, most of these North Africans that you see, they aren't even, actual Hamites. They are Ishmaelites, right? Of course, you still have the different Hamitic tribes, like I said, Hamitic tribes. Like I said, the Amazigh, the Berbers, right? The Tuaregs, for example, that's another one, right? They still exist, okay? But once again, the bulk of the North Africans, Libya, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, right, are, even Mauritania as well, are Ishmaelites, okay? There are more Hamites in Mauritania than Ishmaelites, but you get the point, right? And now they are showing the hatred that they have towards our people, and it is becoming abundantly more clear, especially with everything that has been happening, not just the African Cup of Nations, CAF or AFCON, right? But also as well with what happened with Speed, I Show Speed, when he was recently visited both Algeria and Egypt, right? So basically, when he visited Egypt, they were talking about how, Speed asked about the mummy heads, right? The heads of the statues in Egypt, and why the noses were broken off, and the if you know I probably don't have the original clip, right? But I'll show you. You know, so I can do a video on this, right? But he was asking about why the mummy noses were broken off, why the noses of the different statues that were in all the different sites that he saw were broken off, and they were, you know, giving the usual excuses that, oh, it happened because of weathering. Basically, the noses broke off because they were the weakest part, and it was easy for them to break off, and so on and so forth, right? Which of course was part of the iconoclasm in order to hide the fact that, right, the original Egyptians were dark-skinned Hamitic people. So back to the main point, right? When he moved from Egypt to Algeria, where you saw, and I can saw the video, man, the level of hatred that he was receiving over there, right? The insults, the slurs, the bywords, the proverbs, okay? Monkey is another one. How these devils, because of that evolution bullshit, right? They want to associate, you know, monkeys, okay, with Jake, which is just another roundabout way of saying that, oh, you know, these so-called Negroes, right, are less evolved than every other group of people. That's why they're likening them to, they liken people to monkeys, right? Which is basically going into the fourth theory of evolution, right? Showing you once again, this is the devil that we're dealing with, okay? And right along with him are the other nations. So once again, Psalms 83 verse 6. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, which are of course referring to the Ishmaelites being the Arabs, right? The Chinese, the Moabites, the Chinese, and I believe the Vietnamese and us as well. The Hagarenes once again refers to Ishmael, okay? The children of Hagar, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek. So now we're going into the Japanese / the Koreans, and Amalek of course being the small hats. The Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre, which are Canaanites, right? Hamites. The Philistines and the people of Tyre and Zidon are also Hamites as well, right? The Philistines are break off Egyptians, okay? Mitzrayimites, you know, Mitzrayim, break off Egyptians, and the Tyre and Sidonians are, I believe they are Canaanites, okay? But they all go back to Ham. So this is basically representing all the different nations, okay? Now, Psalm 83 verse 8, Ashur also is joined with them, and they have hope in the children of Lot Selah. So this is of course referring to all the different nations and their confederacy together against our people, because none of these other nations are none of these other nations are for our people, man. They're not for Jake, or even for the brutal or even for basically promoting or receiving the true identity or the true nationality of our people, which are which are of course the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, are the Israelites according to the scriptures. So these other nations, they're not for that identity. They are not for the true nationality of our people being actually brought out, being exposed, let me not say exposed, but basically being revealed, okay? That's why you see these Ishmaelites, they have no problem, right? They have no problem when the pharaohs in these movies and media are white, okay? They have no problem when the Egyptians are being portrayed as white, because a lot of them still actually see themselves as Europeans, right? As Edomites and Ishmaelites and all those kind of things, right? Mainly Europeans. Let me not say Edomites. They see themselves as Europeans, right? But when the Egyptians get depicted as Hamites, as dark-skinned, people, coily hair and so on, right? When Jake plays Egyptians, that's when the real problem now begins. That's when you start seeing these nations start to sue Hollywood, start to write cease and desist, right? As soon as you put Jake in a role that, as soon as you put Jake you make Jake, or you put Jake, right, in his basically you put Jake as basically the actor for the ancient people of that land, similar to what happened with Assassin's Creed Shadow, okay, when when Ubisoft, which is a AAA video game company, made Assassin's Creed Shadows and put Yasuke, which is basically the original Black Samurai, if you know that history, right? So somebody that actually existed as a main character in their game, and the Japanese government was completely against it, right? They even sent out, I believe they tried to sue Ubisoft as well. And that shows you, like I said, man, these other nations, right? The level of hatred, okay, the level of disdain that they have for our people. And that's really what is on full display in that video. So let me get this preset as well. Alright, so let me get the quick precepts. Let's go to the book of I believe that's Micah. Right. So this is the book of Micah 4, and I'll start from verse 10. Micah 4 verse 10. Be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon, and there shalt thou be delivered. There Yahweh shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. And this, of course, is going into modern day America, Babylon the Great, right, where our people are going to be scattered into in the last days, which of course is in the times that we're in right now. And as it says, the Most High Yahweh Shai is going to deliver us from our enemies. And make no mistake, okay, Esau, Edom, the so-called red man, is still at the top of that list of the enemies of our people, right? But the other nations still follow close behind as well, and are still confederate with Esau, Edom, right? Because what nation hath not partaken of the captivity of our people? And that's another precept I want to bring out. Let me just quickly go through this first. So now the book of Micah 4 verse 11. Now also many nations are gathered against thee, that say, let her be defiled, and let her eye look upon Zion. But they know not the thoughts of Yahweh, neither understand they his counsel, for he shall gather them as sheaves into the floor. Let us also get this, because that's the idea that the nations have, right? They think that our people, right, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, okay, the scattered Israelites that are scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, that will continue to be at the bottom. They will continue to be last, right? But what the nations don't realize, because the nations imagine a vain thing. Psalms 2 verse 1. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? Is that we have a deliverer, a redeemer in our Lord Yahweh Shai. And that's the beauty, and that's what we got there. That's what we got, right? We have a deliverer in our Lord Yahweh Shai, so we will not stay in this wretched state that we are in as a nation. So now let's see. I want to get another precept real quick. So I remember. I want to see if I can get another precept. Let me see. Alright, so let me end it right there. Once again, all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High, Yahweh Basham, Yahweh Shai Basham Rakakwadash, Wa Abad Babal Shalom. Through the Spirit of Yakim and Joaquasa edified. Shalom.